Hello, everyone. Very much thank you for taking the time today. Obviously, I'm going to introduce you more to the topic and to our participants today. But first of all, we're going to talk about making more money with parts by leveraging web data today. Very excited to be here, and thank you all for tuning in. Let's start with the agenda right away. We'll do quick speaker introductions. Most of you, they probably know either Chris or myself. But for those of you who don't know either of us, we're going to do quick intros. Chris will cover a very, very interesting topic, how to get started with leveraging web data and what foundations you need to lay to actually get to where we eventually want to be as an OEM. I will focus on what we do best at MARKT-PILOT about analyzing market data. And obviously, we don't want to keep it high level. We're going to start high level, but then we're going to narrow it down to what's really the bottom line. How can you really combine internal web data that you collect anyways, because you've been doing business for decades in most cases, with external data that you can start collecting today? And how can you combine that to make better decisions? That's what it's really about. And to help you do that, we also prepared a worksheet that every participant will get as an outcome of this call today to start putting the insights into practice immediately. Obviously, this session will be recorded, so if you do have to tune out at some point, or if you can't make it for some reason, you can send this recording to any colleagues, and you don't have to take notes, of course. And we do encourage you to please share any questions that you have in the chat. We will answer them at the end of the presentation, most likely, or if we randomly see them and it fits to what we're talking about right now, then maybe we'll address it during our presentations. So, quick introductions. I'll start and then hand it over to Chris. My name's Tim. I'm leading MARKT-PILOT in North America. Been with the company for about 2 years now. Was hired as the right hand of the founder and CEO. And I always joke that he probably didn't like working with me anymore. So he sent me to the US and told me go build an office over there. That's what I've been doing for the past 2 years, quite successfully. But of course, there's a long way to go. And on my journey, I've met some very, very incredible people here in the US that are deeply rooted in the manufacturing scene. And one of the most impressive individuals that I had the pleasure of meeting is Chris. That's why I'm so excited to welcome her to the webinar today. Over to you, Chris.
Hey, thank you, Tim. Yeah, it's funny that you tell a joke. I always tell the joke that aftermarket is my love language. I've been talking about parts and service for a really long time, and I think it's something that I continue to be passionate about and excited about. So I always love an opportunity, to help parts leaders and parts organizations and, members of parts teams, give them new ideas and insights that help them grow. And really, I think we all enjoy our job more when we're improving things for our customers and we're improving things for our employees as well. So I hope that, our conversation today, and let's make this a conversation. Please ask us your questions. We really want to make sure we're addressing them. This is ultimately for you, the people who are attending. We want to make your lives easier and the lives of your customers easier. I am the CEO of GenAlpha Technologies. We are a technology company that provides OEM manufacturers and aftermarket parts organizations the ability to sell their products online. So from there, I'll kick it off. So really, as we think about getting started, if we're going to leverage web data to increase our parts sales, we have to have web data in order to do that. So the main idea here is that it's really time to move online. And hopefully I'm going to give you a lot of reasons as to why you need to be thinking about this. I'm going to be sharing a lot of quotes throughout this presentation. I do think facts over opinions matter. So when we can share stories like Gartner says, 80% of B2B sales interactions between suppliers and buyers will occur in digital channels by 2025. So for those of you who are listening who do not have a digital channel today, this should be a concern for you, because they're talking, for a lot of years, many companies thought that this was for retail or it was for B2C companies. But in reality, the information that we continue to see is that this applies to B2B as well. In previous webinars this year, I've shared how our implementations, and we work directly with OEMs and parts organizations. So all of the OEMs that we work with, they sell their parts online using our tools. And if I look year over year, 2022 over 2021, there was a 27% increase in revenue across our implementations, and there was another 15% increase in the number of visits. So that tells you directly that things are changing. So yes, people are using these tools. And right before I joined Tim today, I actually looked at our first quarter and I compared all of our implementation results, Q1 over, 2023 Q1 over 2022 Q1. And let me share some of the data for you on that. So revenue across our implementations online is up 48% quarter over quarter. Our average order value online went from $1,242 in 2022 Q1 to $1,391, which is a growth of 12%. So even the average order value went up. The number of orders placed online that account for that revenue was up 24%. And here's one that the number that really was quite shocking is the number of visits. So Q1 of last year, 366,630 visits to our implementation sites. Q1 of this year, 530,916, a 45% increase in visits to these sites. And, I like to talk about digital commerce as a place for your customers, your employees to self-service. This is so much more than a business transaction. When we talk about those visits, it's not just about placing an order. It is about a lot of the activities that support companies in using your product. So, and we're going to dive into that today. So I hope that, by introducing some of these facts throughout, you'll start to really believe that, yes, you've got to move online. Gartner's talking about it. Other organizations are talking about. We've got a lot of facts we can share with you. If we think about the B2B buyer journey, here's another insight from McKinsey, and they are sharing that 70 to 80% of B2B decision makers prefer remote human interactions or digital self-service. So this, again, what it's telling us is that the B2B buyer journey, which in reality, the journey itself hasn't changed much. So, buyers go through the awareness, consideration, decision-making, they go through that capital purchase decision, and then they go into the post-purchases, which is really what we're talking about today on that parts and service side of things. There's always been this journey, but as we think about the difference in the native analog individuals to the native digital individuals. And I've written about this in the past. You can find some of the things that we've written either on LinkedIn or on our website. But, digital natives are those that were born after 1995. And what that means is they essentially were born with technology in their hands, and that's what they know. They search Google. Tim's laughing, right? Because Tim, when were you born? I'm curious if you're willing to share.
I don't know if I want to share that. I was born in 97, so I'm in that group.
There you go. Well, and I was born in 74, so I'm a Generation X, and I would say that I've had to be on both sides of this. But the reality is, for those people that were born after 1995 who are getting into these critical roles inside organizations, just like Tim is in his own organization, they are looking for information at their fingertips because that's what they know. So we as successful business leaders, we have to be able to give that to them, whether we are a parts organization, an OEM of capital equipment, or we're digital companies. We all have to be thinking about how the buyer experiences our product. All right. So there are some benefits of online selling that, I like to summarize them in 3 ways. And as we go throughout this presentation, I'm going to come back to these, but really these benefits apply to both you as a manufacturer or a parts organization and your customers. So when you offer online solutions, you are creating a way to be more efficient, essentially the reduction of manual processes. You are giving your organization the ability to be flexible and scalable. So as you add additional brands, as you add additional products, maybe to your ERP system, immediately those products become available in your storefront for customers and dealers to access. So flexibility is really key. And then profitability. Typically, organizations, when they think about an ROI for something, they want to understand what are the revenue outcomes of making this journey. So we have to talk about that as well. But these are the key buckets of moving online. And let's look at it from your customer's point of view. So what are equipment owners looking for? And you can see that Capgemini here shares, we have a quote here that says 85% of business buyers believe the experience a company provides is as important as its products. And, I consume a lot of information in this space, and I will tell you that the customer experience, engaging the customer, making it easy for the customer is something that is frequently being talked about today. So your buyers are looking for a better experience. And if we dive into our world of equipment owners, they're looking for the fastest way to identify the right parts for their machine. Typically, when they need a part, it's not something that they're planning well in advance for. Well, we wish they would do that. Parts is typically out of a necessity. There's an upcoming maintenance, or there's a breakdown and repair, and they need to get that equipment back up and running. They safely need to identify the right part for the job and the right part for the piece of equipment that they own. So they want that ability from you. They're looking for instructional documents and videos. I often comment that I have a small hobby farm here. It's called 2 Girls and a Farm, and we have several pieces of equipment. And when I want to do an oil change, I still do not find videos on the manufacturer's website showing me how to do an oil change. So what happens is I go to YouTube and I have to find non-genuine OEM technicians who teach me how to do these things. And I'm using oil change as an example, but this is what happens if manufacturers don't create the documentation or the videos or make it available, again, easy for customers. They're going to go online, but they're going to go to other places. And sometimes those places may not be giving them the best advice for the equipment that they're operating. Customers are looking for price and availability of products and services, right? So a lot of the questions that come into your call center are basically about, they might even know the part number because they've owned your equipment for so long, and they're just looking simply for price and availability so that they know whether they should place the order with you or keep searching from somebody else. They're also looking for their own ability to create a quote or an order. I talk to many manufacturers, and they're not yet convinced that their own customers want to do this. And in response to that, I say, go down to your purchasing department and ask your purchasing department what they're doing when they have requisitions that come through their ERP system. Are they always forced to send an email or make a phone call direct to an organization, and how do they like that versus going to the websites that they've felt that they've gained confidence in, who can deliver products quickly to them. So I know that Grainger, Fastenal, McMaster-Carr, they have grown because they've made it so easy for customers to get information. So I would bet in your own organization, if you talk to your purchasers or buyers, you would find out they are using e-commerce sites to gather information and to place orders. So if you still think your customers don't want to do that, you should ask your own internal people. They're looking for order status and tracking information. So very quickly, they want to know when the product is coming or if it's already shipped, and they should be, watching for it in the shop floor, especially if a piece of equipment is down. They're consistently wanting to know that information. So providing them visibility to that is critical. They want the ability to pay invoices, and they also look for easy ways to repeat their purchases. So reorder capability is something that we see that functionality used all the time. And ultimately what they are after is machine uptime. So when we talk about profitability for the equipment owner, it is using that piece of machinery to be productive. So the parts are really just, they typically are the noise, and they want that piece of machinery back up and running as quick as possible for them to stay productive and make money on their own. So now let's talk about, what are you looking for as the manufacturer, the parts organization? What is it that you're looking for? And again, I've got a quote here from McKinsey: manufacturers who adopt e-commerce can achieve a 15 to 20% increase in customer acquisition, a 20 to 25% increase in sales, and a 20 to 30% increase in customer retention. So, that's what McKinsey has to say. I've shared some facts with you. Let's go into some of the areas where you have a lot of manual processes where we know you would like to improve this. And that typically occurs around the volume of phone calls, emails, text messages that you get for the routine tasks. When I talk about routine tasks, it's some of those things that I just mentioned in the previous slide. What's my part number? What's the status of my order? When am I going to get it? Can I pay the invoice? Can I get a copy of the invoice? What's the price? Is it in stock? If it's not in stock, when will it be in stock, right? And for you manufacturers out there, most of you, if not all of you, have an ERP system where you've been managing that data. By integrating your ERP system to a digital commerce environment, that information can be easily available to your customers to answer many of these routine tasks. You want an increased share of wallet from existing customers. You want new customers and new revenue streams. And often a digital sales channel can give that to you, because your sales team can only reach so many places. And oftentimes large capital equipment goes into its second or third generation of use. And that might mean that it's in a different country or even in a secondhand market that you're not aware where that piece of equipment went. But by having the ability for people to search online for your brand and get to your parts website, they can now access information and get the support that you may not even known that they needed assistance from you. You want improved margins. We'll be talking a lot about that today. You want a reduction in order errors and returns, right? So you want to make sure that customers are getting the right part the first time. We talk a lot about that in the aftermarket. Anything you can do to reduce the number of order errors is important to your business and incredibly important to your customers. You want to increase the average order value. I'll tell you that in a busy call center, most customer service representatives are do not have the time to be proactive. So they are reacting to every phone call and message that comes in. So it's very hard for them to upsell or cross-sell. Plus, they have to be really well trained to have that information readily available to be able to provide that, to have the ability to increase an average order value. Whereas with a digital commerce solution, these suggested upsells and cross-sells can be automatic. You want the ability to scale quickly. We see this as a huge opportunity with the OEMs that we work with. It's not uncommon for an OEM that is interested in moving online to say that in the next 3 to 5 years, they want to grow their aftermarket business by 30 to 50%. Well, in the past, when you wanted to grow your business 30 to 50%, it required additional people to do that. And what happens when you move online is that you don't need those additional people anymore, because you have you've already reallocated your resources to other more value-added activities, and the website is taking up much of that volume, which really does help you grow that business. And then, of course, you want market share growth. This is that profitability. You're always looking for additional revenue. How can you get more out of the industry? Many OEMs that we talk to have added brands. There's been a lot of consolidation in the industry since I've been involved in the very beginning. So it's not uncommon that a manufacturer will have multiple brands underneath them, or many verticals to support a common product. And that market share growth is important. And then you're looking for actionable insights from data. All of us can say we have a lot of data, and I will meet many aftermarket organizations and OEMs that will tell me it's not that I don't have data. I have a lot of data. I don't know what to do with the data. I don't have the resources to utilize the data or to glean any information out of that data. So the great thing about most digital commerce solutions is they're going to give you that actionable insights. So as we look across these two groups, digital commerce is the key to achieving both what you as manufacturers want and your customers want to be efficient, flexible, and profitable. And data is how you leverage it all. So let's talk a little bit about, once you're using digital commerce tools, what's the value of the customer data that you can then glean, and different ways that you can utilize this. So quickly, and I know this is going to look a little bit small, but just remember, you're going to get a recording of this, so you can potentially zoom in and look at this in detail. But really, what on the right-hand side of the screen here is showing you is some of the analytics. And I just wanted to be able to demonstrate that in analytics for an e-commerce site, you can capture a lot of data. Of course, you're going to capture things like revenue, gross margin, orders, visits, and all of that's great. But diving into the details is where you get the insight. So what I have on the top right screen is customer specific data about a customer, and often in an analytics environment you can segment. So by the user, you can see what are they ordering, how much, what's the value of the orders, when's the last time they ordered, how many refunds have they pushed through, how many abandoned carts, so on and so forth. On the bottom, I have the product list. So this is your catalog of products that would be in your e-commerce environment. Same thing, you can look at the quantity of a product sold. You can look at the number of orders, the average order value for products that are in that order. But you can also segment by hot products, the most profitable products, the most abandoned products, the at-risk products, the low margin products. So there's this detail that's really critical, and that's really what's demonstrated on the right here. But something I want to express here is that when you have a website and you're capturing information, customers will show you not tell you what they want. And this is really critical, because I think in the aftermarket area, we often make decisions by opinion, right? We think what customers want is this, but we don't have the data to back up what they truly want. But we have a lot of opinions, and then we make decisions based on those opinions. But with a solution, you can actually have the true facts. And here are some of those things that a site will give you. And I hope what this does is help you to start to explore, as an aftermarket parts organization, what would you do if you had this data, right? So what's being searched and ordered? So think about that. If your employees are using this site, because that's often what happens here, is customer service teams stop using their ERP system and they start using the digital commerce store to answer customers' questions, to search for products, because it's more intuitive, it has an easier click path, and you can gather more data if you have both your customer team and your customer service team searching for things online. So searching for what's being searched and ordered, what's being searched and not ordered. So if I think about this for a minute, sometimes what customers search for, there's 0 orders against it, but that could be because there's no result, right? Sometimes I like to use the example of synonyms. So wheel, tire, spare. The description you might have on your product is wheel, and you might have 4 wheels, 2 wheels, 1 wheel, but somebody else might be searching for spare, or they are calling it a tire. And that ability to assign a synonym. So once you see, hey, a bunch of people are searching for a spare and nothing comes up when they search spare, now you can add across a synonym to that, to your parts that are wheel or tire, so that when they search spare, they get a result, right? So this data is really, really critical for you. Who's ordering and what are they ordering, right? Who's not ordering? So as you think about being more proactive, whether it's with your sales team or your customer service team, who's not ordering and who's not ordering online can now be something that is a discussion. And your sales team can be armed with information to go and assist them in making their job easier by knowing that, hey, these guys, they continue to use the call center. Now, maybe there's a reason for that. And for many of you, when you start with a digital solution, you're going to have a mix of both, and that's okay. What you want to do is have a channel that's available for anybody, anywhere they are in their buying journey, right? So if people are still comfortable calling Jim, and Jim's the guy that they like to talk to, and they've always known Jim gives them confidence, then let them call Jim. But for guys like Tim, who are born after 1995, they don't know Jim. They don't want to speak to Jim unless they have a real problem. Then they might get to know Jim, but they're going online and searching for things, right? So who's not ordering? How do you get them involved? It gives you information that you didn't have before. What's not being searched? So what do you expect customers to be buying from you, but they're not? And this is where digital commerce can be really valuable, because you have lots of different ways that you can promote products that customers may not be thinking of you for. So this is especially true when you sell industry products. So often your proprietary parts that you manufacture for your equipment, customers are always going to know you for that. But when it comes to the other industrial products that are more common across brands, they may not know that you offer that, and you could be providing them a better experience. So by understanding what's not being searched, what's not being ordered, is really critical for you to help you with your promotions and the layout of your site to give them that information. You also can uncover what's being abandoned in the cart, so that your customer team, so this is like quote follow-up. Oftentimes if you're lucky enough that your customer service team actually puts a quote into the system, that quote is something that if you are a proactive organization, you can follow up on, but abandoned carts can be the same way. So it can be something your sales team goes after, it can be something your customer service team goes after, or it can be automated. And for many of us who have done our own online shopping, we've done research, we've put things into our shopping cart. It's not uncommon if we didn't convert that cart into an order that we receive an email shortly thereafter within 24 hours, reminding us what we have in our cart. Those reminder emails do support manufacturers getting additional sales and converting those. So you want to have those that ability. You can see at-risk customers. You can see the source of your traffic. Again, this is really critical. So are your customers coming directly in and then logging in and coming in so they therefore know you? Are they coming from Google? Are they coming from Bing? Are they coming from some ad that you put in an industrial magazine and that's how they found out about you? Understanding your source of traffic helps your marketing team to better understand where you should maybe, where your marketing efforts are getting the best result. And then most refunded products, we talked a little bit about some of these, but these are really the powerful insights that you're going to get from a solution to help your organization make better business decisions. I don't want to leave without talking about a few things that I often talk about as an exercise, because this is probably the most valuable solution. Having run aftermarket organizations myself, I've been a part of an organization where when I started, we were 250 million in parts. And when I left, we were 1.2 billion in parts. So I recognize that there's a lot of analysis that goes into the parts business to help you grow, particularly if you're acquiring companies and you're trying to get additional revenue through your acquisition of a company, but you're also trying to grow organically. And some of the things that I want to talk about here with respect to product data that we see a lot is things like, if you, let's say you took Q1 and you just looked in Q1, how many searches, what were the top searches in Q1? And let's say your top products were searched, we'll pick one, the top product was searched 100 times and all 100 were ordered. That would tell you that you either have a really good price, really good availability, really good product information, or it's a proprietary product, right? But if you're getting 100 out of 100, so 100% of the time, when they search for this, they buy it. That is an opportunity for you to consider increasing your price. So when you're looking for quick ways to increase price, that becomes one opportunity. Now let's say the reverse is true. There's 100 searches for the next, product on the list, 100 searches, and either 0 ordered or 0 to 10. So the hit rate on that product is very low. Then you can start asking yourself the question, did I have inventory? Right? So if I didn't have inventory, and I always like to say availability sells. So the first thing I would try, if I have a high search rate product with low order, low conversion, I would get some on hand and test. In my next quarter, could I turn more of those searches into orders because I now have it available? And obviously the type of product is going to matter here. So you're going to have to think through a few things, but product availability would be the first thing I would check. Now, if you do have stock and it's not a stock issue, then you might want to look at the product information that's available on your website. So is my product description good? Do I have a good image? that is giving them confidence that this is, of course, the product that they need? Is there a where used? Does it reference which machine that this belongs in, so that there's that extra level of confidence? So I would clear up any product definitions, specification, product information for something like that, and see if that changes your conversion rate. If you've got a great image, you've got where used, you've got a good product description, you've got stock, and you've got 100 searches with 0 orders, you probably have a problem with your price. So these are ways that this data becomes very useful for us to incrementally better our parts business. And I just wanted to focus in on that, because that's how a lot of our customers use the data. Now, very quickly, before I pass it over to Tim, I just wanted to share with you, who's having success online today. And, we have a customer, Bros Broom. They are a manufacturer of industrial style street sweepers. You might have seen them behind parades. They'll come through and sweep through, or you might see them on construction projects. I passed one just the other day, traveling back to Milwaukee from Chicago. But they saw the opportunity to provide their dealers and their national account partners with an easier and better way to do business with them. And that is why they rolled out a digital commerce solution. And the results in their first 6 months, they had over 2,000 orders through their website. They had more than 7,500 visits. So think about that, 7,500 visits to their websites to, again, and I will remind you, not every visit is to place an order, because in a digital commerce environment like the ones that OEMs offer their clients, there's so much additional information that customers might be accessing, whether that be parts manuals, operators manuals, status of their order, paying invoice, and so on. But 7,500 visits that hopefully reduce their call volume, their email volume, everything by 7,500 in that time frame. They had over 1.5 million of revenue online, and 40% of their orders were made online just in the first 6 months. And now they've been collecting data over time. So remember too, that the longer you wait to move online, the longer you're delaying having access to this data and building the data environment that can help you make these better business decisions. So with that, I'll pass it over to Tim.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for the insights, and thanks also for driving the urgency. I think that really came across very well. Let's go to the next slide. I'll be talking about market data today, and I'll kick it off with the story as well. As part of our launch in the US specifically, right? We are a company originally from Europe, new market for us in North America. We had a lot of our customers that we already had in Europe asking us, hey, can you also do that for us in North America, please? So we realized, okay, it's probably a good market opportunity. But in order to really understand the market, the first thing we did is we talked to hundreds of potential customers, right? So I've had in the last year at least conversations with 200 different OEMs talking about their parts business specifically, talking about the challenges that they face. And the 3 most common themes that I kept hearing from everyone across the organization, from like the parts manager or parts specialist level all the way up to CEOs, was those 3 things that we have on the slide here. The first one, very critical throughout the service and parts industry, is talent shortage. It's really, really difficult to find good people who want to be in the aftermarket and service business. In general, it's critical to find good people, and we also see it from a pricing perspective that it's even more difficult here. Pricing has been something it's been overlooked historically for whatever reason, just because it's probably not as sexy as business areas like sales or so are, and that results in a talent shortage today. In fact, I was in Las Vegas the other week for ConExpo, for the big construction expo there. We were talking to a lot of VP levels specifically, and they asked us if we could send good candidates for their pricing team their way, because it's so difficult for them to hire the right person. So if you're on this webinar right now and you have a solid background in pricing, the job market is looking really good for you. Well done in the past. The the second one is leadership expectations. They are very high for the parts and aftermarket organizations today, mainly because the new equipment side of the business is very, very competitive nowadays. And that means that executives have looked into the parts business and realized, oh, we're actually quite profitable here. Why don't we just grow that side of the business? Because it will lead us to better margins. And it also can help us become more competitive on the equipment side of things because we're more profitable in the aftermarket space. So executives, they want to prioritize that profitable growth, but at the same time, resources are still limited because there's almost no OEM where the parts business or the service business makes up 50% or more of the business. So it's still, for many, it's still an afterthought, even though it's become such a highly profitable and critical business area. And if we combine these high growth expectations with the talent shortage, that's very difficult because you need to prioritize. And then that's more of an industry shift, the third one in general, and that's a very positive trend. Parts are increasing in their importance. There's many trends that accelerate that, trends like reshoring, for example, more manufacturing done in the United States, which is a great thing, and which will also lead to more components having to be locally available, just because more of the supply chain is within the US, instead of waiting for parts that need to be shipped from overseas, for example. The whole supply chain mess, many of our customers, they've been really battled by that over the last years. And also just in general, stuff like right to repair, right? The whole trend that we see here, especially in the agriculture industry, the goal is to increase let's say, the lifetime of a piece of equipment for sustainability reasons, just for a peace of mind of the operator of a piece of equipment. And to do that, you will need better and more reliable parts. So the importance of parts will grow no matter what's going to happen in other areas of the business. So that's the good news. Parts are increasing in terms of importance, but it's still very difficult. And so leaders need to prioritize and they need to grow. I thought it was really funny when Chris said that I wrote it down here, that she frequently hears about 30 to 50% growth expectations over the next years. We hear that all the time, and sometimes it's even more ambitious than that. I just talked to a potential customer earlier this morning, currently a 50 million parts business, and he wants to double it to reach 100 million within the next 3 years. And obviously, this is incredible. This would be an incredible achievement. And to do that, he will have to launch various initiatives, become better in many different parts in the aftermarket organization. But if we look at it from a 10,000 foot level, he can only do two things. He can either sell more parts to increase his revenue, or he can increase his parts prices to increase the revenue per part that's sold. Those are the only two things fundamentally that you can do. Obviously, there's many, many initiatives below that you can do. Like Chris has talked a lot about improving the customer experience, going online, creating additional sales channels, for example. This is crucial. And this is really the foundation that you have to build if you want to remain competitive in the part side of things, especially as the competitive landscape is so much more, more cruel than it has been a couple of years ago, right? You could increase your marketing spend. You could hire more parts salespeople to become more proactive in your parts side of the business. You could look into decreased prices to grow sales quantities. All of these things, they're necessary, but they're also very complex. They require resources. There's a time delay when it comes to price decreases, for example, because first your customers need to understand that now you have cheaper prices. So it takes a while and it's high effort. On the other hand, what you can do today is increase your parts prices, but of course only where it makes sense, right? So please don't just say, hey, we're increasing our parts price by 20%. That's not going to work. It's crucial to do that for the right parts, for those that are underpriced, where you compare your parts prices against other vendors that are selling exactly the same part, mostly for purchased or commercial components. But you can also increase your parts prices for parts where your customers are willing to pay that price. For example, because it's a proprietary part or an exclusive one that they cannot buy from anyone else, but from you. If you want to move to the next slide, please. Those are really the three main reasons why we typically advise or encourage our customers to prioritize pricing once they've built the foundation of, for example, providing a good customer experience. We believe that in this journey to doubling your parts revenue, momentum is critical. And to achieve that momentum, you need quick wins, and you need to prove those quick wins and demonstrate leadership that there's great things to be achieved in the parts side of your business. And we believe for 3 of these reasons, and I'll go into those in a second, but we believe that pricing is the easiest and most effective way to grow your parts business, mostly because we've done a lot of analytics with the customers that we work with. On average, we see that 73% of parts are actually losing money today, just leaving money on the table. 21% of those are because the parts are simply underpriced, and 52 are because it's exclusive. So your customers, they cannot shop around for them. Why selling them at a lower price than you could be? And the one statistic that always blows my mind is a Harvard Business Review statistic that's already quite old, which says that just a 1% pricing improvement can boost your profitability by up to 11%. So it's the most direct lever to improve your parts business. So please use it. And we'll go to the next slide. So to win in pricing and to get these 11% improvement just by 1% pricing improvement, you must understand your competitive landscape nowadays. More specifically, especially for components that are easy to find online that are very competitive, you have to understand that your customers, they shop around for parts, they compare your prices against all these other third parties out there, a Grainger, Motion, Zorro, even Amazon Business or Walmart for some components, and they will draw conclusions about your pricing. So especially when you move online, when you follow Chris' advice and you start selling through online channels, you must ensure that you get your pricing right. Because if we go one step further, Chris, then we'll see what happens if you don't. What we see a lot of times, especially in the beginning, is that some parts, they're just ridiculously overpriced for historical reasons and just because the OEM is not aware of it. And this will have a very bad impact on your overall pricing reputation in the market. You will lose customers that are simply going to stop buying from you, or they will just never come back. And that's the last thing you want, because parts are the easiest way to achieve recurring revenue and to maintain and grow a loyal customer base. So please don't just have a terrible pricing that will that will throw everything off. Now I'm gonna go over this rather quickly. One thing that further complicates it is for all those of you that don't just operate in North America, global market prices, they are very, very different, and they also provide opportunities for further increasing your profitability in the different markets you operate. We recently did a study for German components specifically, so components that are manufactured in Germany. Those are on average 55% more expensive when sold in North America. That's the average value. But within those 55%, some parts, they might be cheaper. So some actually only cost 40% of what they cost in Germany, just because it's a very competitive market in the US for that specific component. And others, they are even way, way more expensive than the 55% that we have as an average value. So especially for your top SKUs, when you're working globally, make sure that you look at regional pricing, because otherwise this could really impact your performance and your profitability in different regions. Now, one very simple case study, that's actually one of our very first customers that we've worked with, a German manufacturer of thermoforming machines, does about 120 million in annual revenue. And when they started working with us, that was in year 2, they were looking at about 4.36 million in revenue with purchase parts. Their plan was to grow that organically through their efforts to about 5 million in year 4. But then they started working with us. They looked at their portfolio. They realized, oh, there's actually a significant portion of the business where we could increase our prices without scaring off customers. So they did that. And what they reached is that by the end of year 4, they actually had 7.56 million in annual purchase parts revenue. So they increased their revenue by about 4.4 million in those 2 years just by applying the pricing. They didn't hire another person for that. Obviously it requires some analysis and some thinking, yes, but it didn't require them significant resources or efforts to achieve that result. And those numbers are impressive. And for all those who want to reach that doubling our parts revenue goal, please consider looking into pricing. Now, I'll take one step back, because where the real magic happens is not just looking at the market, and it's not just looking internally, it's looking at both these data sources at the same time and combining them. So what you really want to do is look at your internal data that you get from your ERP system, from a system like GenAlpha provides it, whatever it might be, and combine it with market data that you collect through surveys, through a tool like we provided, whatever that might be. I'll give you one very concrete example. Let's say if we find a part where your win rate, or your hit rate, how Chris called it, is very high. So you had 1,000 views on your website, 850 of them actually led to orders. So you have a win rate of 85%. And you also draw in the analysis from the market that you're actually underpriced for that part by 25%. Then you can be extremely confident that you can increase your price at least to market level, thereby boost your profits and your revenue immediately without scaring off any customers, because you've done your homework and you know that you're not jacking up the price too much, which could lead to a bad reputation. So that's really what it's about, combining internal and external data to improve your customer experience, your pricing, what parts you're stocking, what channels you're using, and ultimately your customer loyalty, because that's what it's all about. The bottom line, it's very simple. Adopting any digital commerce and other digital tools for your parts, they will only better your business if you have the capability to actually spend time on it. That's very crucial, because if you don't take it seriously, and if you just do it, I probably shouldn't say that word in an official webinar, but if you do it half-assed, then it's not going to work out. We've seen that in the past. Companies who don't take it seriously and only go the halfway, are not willing to go the extra mile, they will fail in the digital space, because then you're not providing the experience that you should be and that your customers expect. So it's about, on the one hand, proving quick wins to generate that excitement in the company, but then also building a long-lasting online capability. And the good news is, if you do that today, you're still ahead of the curve. Even though it might be somewhat late, a lot of early adopters, they're already getting into the space, but you're still ahead of the curve if you start today. And one thing that we want to give you as let's say, a tool to put it into action today without having to sign up for GenAlpha or MARKT-PILOT straight away, is a very simple Excel sheet that we've put together that you can use as a kind of a working tool to get started to analyze web data and make more money with your parts. You'll get this as a download, so no need to follow me on every step. I'll keep it very high level for now because I want to leave some time for questions. But the main idea is that we've prepared in our opinion, simple Excel sheet where you can follow a list from left to right, a list of things that you have to do, and then the list will provide you recommendations on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'll go through it line by line. Usually what we recommend, especially if you have an online capability already, first check, is the part in stock? Is the product description on the website optimized? So for example, do you have the right synonyms in place? Is the wording good, and so on? Do you have a high resolution product image? If all of that's the case, then put in your internal pricing data so that we can see if it's a healthy margin or not. If you further combine that with your sales information, so more specifically the win rate or hit rate here, that will give you even more context. And then as we go into the market information too, you will really get the full picture, and the tool will show you what you should be doing with that part. So for example, let's just use line 7 as one example. It's you're buying the part for 56, selling it for 125, which is a margin of $69. You have a 70% win rate, so quite high actually in that example. 3 different market prices that are all more expensive than your sales price over here, which could be seen in the price differential here. So that the table will give you the output. Hey, that part is underpriced. We would recommend to review and update the pricing. And while that might seem a little bit simplistic, there's actually a lot of thought behind it. And it's really a great way to start and also to understand what kind of data should I be pulling to make more informed decisions. Because if you open that sheet and realize I have no idea what my win rate is. I have no idea what the market price is. The only thing I see is my margin. Then you might need more data to make better decisions. That's really the bottom line. That was my part on the market data side of things. Chris, over to you. I don't know if you have insight into the chat for the last 5 minutes for any questions.
Yeah, let's jump into the questions here. So does the analytics on what a customer clicks on for parts carry over to training videos, documents also? And can end user managers make sure their employees are following OEM instructions? So I'll take the first part of that. And of course, Tim, if you have any other suggestions, but I think this is, more about a digital commerce environment. So do the analytics on what a customer clicks on carry over to training videos, documents also? And I would say typically the digital commerce analytics environment probably does not pick up that data, but all websites capture Google Analytics, which does capture the flow of where customers go and what gets clicked on. So while it might not come from one set, your e-commerce analytics, typically you're using your Google Analytics in hand with your digital commerce analytics, and between the two, you can answer information. And in that case, Google Analytics does provide that type of information. And then the second part, can an end user manager make sure their employees are following OEM instructions? This is a little bit trickier, right? You would probably need to have a workflow built in where your employees are flagging a process workflow that they are in fact following an instruction, but it's not always easy for a digital commerce environment to know what somebody does outside of the digital commerce environment. So what you could see is if they went to that page, did they also click on the instruction? And you could make that essentially an if-then rule or an if-then statement. Did they go here and then go here and then have a way of measuring that? And of course, with technology, all of that is possible. You just have to identify the flow that you want to capture.
Maybe one more thought here, Chris. I think it's also really about the user experience, right? Yep. If it's very easy for your end users to follow OEM instructions and to access them, then it's going to be much more likely that they want to use it. But if it's cranky, if you have to log into another tool or whatever, and it's easier to just go to YouTube and type it in there, you have to match that experience because otherwise people won't be using it. Yep, absolutely. Good addition.
And then, there was another question here. What do you believe the penetration rate of digital marketplaces is within the machinery sector? Boy, this is a really difficult one to answer, but I'll do my best. I will share with everybody that 68% of our current clientele that are using our digital commerce solution have moved off of a different solution and onto our solution. So that means that they already did something in the beginning, and now they're on to their second generation solution. There are fewer people doing it for the first time when there are a lot more out there that haven't yet done it for the first time. So what that should tell our audience is that those who have started digital commerce many years ago, they're already on their next generation and they believe in it and they're advancing their tools. Those that haven't even done it yet, and there are still a lot out there. Our CRM is full of companies that haven't yet moved online, and we've been having discussions with them for many years. So that group is falling further behind by not getting started. That's the best way I can answer that. And then this one, Tim, is for you. Do you have any best practices on how to update pricing based on market findings?
I'll keep it brief in the interest of time. the two best practices that we saw where our customers have been very successful. First one is be bold, right? So don't be afraid of price changes if you have good data to back it up. So be bold in your changes, embrace them, and trust the data that you received and that you got to actually make these changes. And the second one is prepare your team really well so that they know what to say if a customer comes back and is like, okay, why did this price increase? Your team, they have to be prepared for that conversation, and they have to be armed with actual data and with a rationale behind it. This is really crucial because otherwise it could hurt your customer relationships.
Great advice, Tim. I really like that. Well, perfect. We've answered all of the questions and we're right at the hour mark. So such a pleasure to be here with you, Tim, today and to share this information with the audience. As Tim mentioned earlier, we will be sending out the recording for everybody who registered. So you'll see that, and you'll also see the putting it to practice template that's been provided and briefly shown here as well. So thank you,
Chris,
everyone.
there was just another question coming in. I think if the attendee, he or she is anonymous, if you want to connect after the webinar with Chris, I think she'll have a great answer to that question.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.